Let's talk about using a broken Tamron lens. So here I have a Tamron 70-300 lens. Now this is quite an old lens and it has a faulty aperture or iris inside the lens, which means it's not closing in and coming back out. Which when you use the lens, it will give an error code of error code 01, which you can see there. Error code 01, communication between the camera and the lens is faulty, clean the lens contacts. Now I've cleaned the lens contacts, I've cleaned the contacts on the camera. Doesn't fix it, basically the aperture is broken. Now I'm not so bummed about that because that particular lens is about 12 years old now. This one, however, this lens came in my 650D and I never used it, so I gave it to the old man who put it into a safe to keep it safe. And when I took it out December to use at the Bangor racing, it failed with exactly the same error. The aperture is faulty in this lens as well. I think the moral of this story is don't buy cheap lenses because they don't last very long. However, I want to use these lenses on some macro projects. The macro projects in particular are the outdoor ones where the subject is too skittish to get close to, like dragonflies. Now I know photographing dragonflies isn't technically, it's not technically macro because it's less than 1-to-1 macro. I believe that's how it says. This macro calculation gets very confusing. 1-to-1 is macro. Photographing dragonflies, unless you're doing the eyeball and the head, is technically not macro, but I digress. But I want to photograph dragonflies. Now I've already sourced some pools. I went scouting there. I did take the camera with me, but unfortunately, because I'm not very good at video side of stuff, it was all overexposed and, well, I'll hit you some B-roll just to see what it was like. There. So we're on location hunt. We're looking for some lakes that will have dragonflies in them. And we've come out in the daytime so we can have a look around, see what the area is like before we come out in the early morning and hopefully not get lost.
But we're kind of lost now.
Yeah, let's go and find these lakes and see if there's any dragonflies there.
Echo!
No, it's that way, or it's that way.
No! No! No!
I think we should go that way.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Hold on, turn around.
Should I go run back up?
You think it's that way then?
Yeah.
So if it isn't, it's your fault.
Okay.
It seems like we're a little bit lost, so we're going to ask if these guys know where these lakes are. Excuse me, do you know there's any ponds or lakes around here?
Go straight. Go straight to the end.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. There they are, Dom. They're down there. You see them? So we found the lake. Now what we've got to do, we've got to go around the lake, see what insects they're on. Hopefully we'll find some dragonflies. Come on. Oh man, we're way overexposed just there. We ain't found any yet. We're still looking. We're still optimistic that we are going to be able to find some dragonflies at these pools. We'll just have to keep looking, won't we? It's a perfect perch for a dragonfly, but I can't see no dragonflies around. So there was us scouting out where we can find some dragonflies. But again, we still got a problem with using the Tamron lens, because every time I want to do use the lens, it basically tells the camera there's a fault. Now it wouldn't be so bad if it only did it when you adjust your f-stop. So if you could keep your f-stop at the minimum and it would work, it wouldn't be so bad. But unfortunately, it still tells the camera that there's a problem, and when it happens, there's nothing you can do. because it just comes up with this error. You can't do nothing. Okay. Now, before I get on to how I'm going to get around this problem, I want to tell you why I want this. Now, the reason why is my current setup that you've seen me use on all the videos with the Nifty 50, the working distance is about 1 inch. Depending on different men's perspective, it's 1 inch. The Tamron lens will allow me to photograph at a much bigger inch, depending on the men's perspective. So that way, I'm not getting too close to the insect and startling it. The biggest downside of my current setup with the Nifty 50, which is, as you know, the Nifty 50 on the extension tubes, is that when you get close, they fly away. By the time I get in focus, they've gone. Okay, that's the biggest problem. Now, I'm bleeding. A dedicated macro lens will solve that problem, like the 100mm 2.8 from Canon, or the Canon MPE 65mm. That will solve the problem, but they cost over £600. £600, I believe, £600 to £800 for the 100mm macro. I don't have that kind of budget at the moment. So we need to fix the Tamron lens. And the problem is not with the Tamron lens, it's with the camera, because the camera is detecting a fault and is saying you cannot use this lens. This is how we're going to get around it. I'm bleeding all over the place here, you guys. To fix this problem, I have 2 macro extension tubes. This one is the one I use all the time and is linked below. As you can see from the metal studs just there, the communication is kept between the lens and the camera so that you can use the autofocus. These ones are non-autofocus macro extension tubes, which means it will break the communication from the lens and the camera, which means that when I put this on here, the camera will not know that there's a lens attached to the camera, okay? It doesn't know, which means that it can't throw up that error. So allow me to demonstrate. So I'm going to turn this off. That should clear out the error. Okay. I'm then going to put the extension tubes on. I'm using the minimum extension tube so that we're not having the big massive ones. I have used extension tubes with this Tamron lens and they do work quite well. Okay, so this, I believe the aperture is stuck at f8, which is one of my favourite f-stops for macro. But now we have a much longer working distance and I should be able to, let me just take a snap. And there you go. So you can see there how we're not getting an error anymore because the camera doesn't even know there's a lens attached to it. That is how I'm going to get round the problem of my Tamron lenses not working because of the aperture being faulty on them. Now I can't afford to go out and grab new lenses because I spent most of the money on the 80D. But this is a nice workaround. Since we're doing macro, we don't need autofocus. The only thing I'm going to lose is the f-stop, but that's something that I can work around with. This is the one I'll use out in the field, which is intermittent, but I can put it on the camera, select my aperture, take it off the camera, put it onto the extension tubes, and we should be good to go. But anyway, that's it for this video. I thought you'd like to see how I'm going to get around this problem with my my Tamron lenses. 2 Tamron lenses now with the same fault. I don't know, just don't buy cheap lenses. I think that's the answer to this problem. Anyway, my name's Stuart Wood. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't done already. You know the rest. I'll see you next time, guys.